Aloha, good morning, and welcome to this Art of Universal Language official pre-parliament of the world's religions event. I'm so grateful to be hosting this with my service partners, Darla Hughes and Alden Hughes. The Art of Universal Language has been a lifelong curiosity of mine, and since around 2020, as we all experienced variations in our life, isolation, some of it, these conversations thickened into a project, and here we are today with this special program of an interfaith panel in preparations for whether you're attending the Parliament of the World's Religions or meeting strangers on the street or preparing for your next conversation or manning a booth at an expo, wherever you are. This idea of understanding that language is as many as there are people on the planet. I also look at religion that way, religion as a personal experience, religions as many people on the planet. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you and your religions and spiritual natures as we converse with each other. How this program began in its more fruitful offerings to the world is through a conversation platform called Spiritual Growth Conversations. It's an online venue that allows your organization, if you want, there's many organizations that use this platform for developing inclusive, dynamic conversations. And the difference that it is on Zoom, it's in its beta form, and that's why we're using Zoom and not Chasm this morning, because they're geared more towards small group conversations, around 5 to 8 people. So Zoom definitely has the better feature right now. I'm sure Chasm is going to grow in its future, where Alden, Darla, and I host Spiritual Growth Conversations, and we're always looking for new hosts. And Art of Universal Language came about as the host training for those inclusive conversations. So you are welcome to join us anytime over there. So let's get centered. Let's set our intention together. So however that looks to you, whatever you need to do to get yourself more comfortable. I always like to give a little sigh. Maybe scan your body for anything any tension that you can let go of. Setting aside anything that you can that you know you can come back to later. Maybe holding gratitude for this global community coming together here this morning. Put a smile on your face. His Holiness the Dalai Lama spoke these words: "The planet desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds. When we practice compassion for others and ourselves, there's a level of love, softness, and forgiveness that can come into play. This kind of positive energy contributes to love, light, and healing in the world." May all beings benefit. Hallelujah. As this is an official pre-Parliament of the World's Religions event, I felt the need this morning to share the Parliament's mission as one of our main questions here today is how interfaith dialogue contributes, or how might it contribute to the social transformation of the planet. The Parliament of the World's Religions was created to cultivate harmony among the world's religious and spiritual communities and foster their engagement with the world and its guiding institutions in order to achieve a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. To accomplish this, we invite individuals and communities who are equally invested in attaining this goal. So maybe ask yourself, or possibly put it in the chat: I am, I do, I concur, if you do, and are invested in attaining this goal. Or maybe you have a variation of that mission.
I just want to express my gratitude for each and every one of you that you have, you share a similar goal to healing our planet and serving humanity. I'm just very grateful for your dedication. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're so grateful that everyone has so many people this morning have an interest in interfaith dialogue. It's going to, if it takes off, transform the world, I believe. So it's a really important thing that we begin to talk in this manner. So thanks everyone for coming.
Very important. We've been talking about it since 1893. I mean, as a collective. I think we're on the move now, though, more dedicated than before. Thank you.
I love that, Miss Darla, that little pinch of history. And if you don't know what Miss Darla is talking about, that's the initial event of the Parliament of the World's Religions back in 1893. Wow. Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello. All right. Well, our brother Alden has been a spiritual teacher of Jesus's gospel called A Course in Miracles. Some of you may know all about, for about 30 years. His life includes missionary trips to many foreign countries and continues this fall as a part of a large international conference in Guadalajara, Mexico. Our sister Tammy, she, as the executive director of Unify, a global nonprofit for world peace and impact. Tammy Scarlett is a global strategist and leader for both social and systems development. Combining her Harvard education in anthropology and an MBA studies with her time spent with Native American and First Nations communities, Tammy, who is a collaborator with the World Academy of Art and Science for the United Nations Human Security Campaign, and whose work has been featured on WGN and Forbes, promotes a return to ancient wisdom and nature alongside the best humanity has to offer in business and efficiency practices, particularly around new ways of collaboration to inform global solutions. Our sister Celeste, Reverend Celeste A. Frazier, is an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister and is currently the Associate Minister of Unity of Washington, D.C. Her inspirational books are on Amazon and Kindle, and her website, celestefrazier.com. All right, so now turning to Reverend Arkin, is the spiritual leader of Unity of Chicago South, the #1 online New Thought spiritual community streaming from Chicago. He is an inspirational speaker and has been a community access TV producer for more than 20 years. Arkin is an author as well as a consciousness building workshop facilitator. And Miss Barbara Newsom chairs the Interfaith Committee of the Urantia Book Fellowship. Her international and local interfaith service focuses on faith-based peace building through a global cooperation circle, the United Religions Initiative, and in the Chicago area through the West Suburban Peace Coalition. So as you can see here, we have some wonderful, I would say heavy hitters, but really it's maybe like light throwers in the world. How exciting that you all committed your time over the last few months in preparation for joining us today. We are so grateful. So the panelists have prepared 3 questions. You may have read them in some of the marketing materials, sharing our time equally, giving full space to hear all of our voices. That is one of the pillars of the art of universal language. Describe a personal faith experience. I love this. Remember storytelling in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's quote that I read during the intention setting? Storytelling. So describe a personal faith experience that has helped you grow spiritually and increase your understanding of unity.
Thank you, everyone, April, Helen, and our guests and participants. This reflection brought to mind so many faith experiences, and I think with a group of this kind, that happens. So for me, being at a later stage in life, I was surprised that my focus went back to my very earliest memories of faith experience. And as I reflected, I realized that the theme for me today is living faith experiences. And I was a child praying for my sister who was ill. And I believe that's one of my earliest memories of deeply feeling supported. At 5 years old, I was. And then I began to realize that for me today, I'll be talking about the value, and it's a current focus of mine, of understanding how to nurture living faith in children, where in their own moments and experiences and age appropriate, they are able to have the kinds of experiences I've had with faith that can be lived. Those moments alone with God, I believed in God at that time, always did, can't remember when I didn't. And then the realization of how my parents and community supported that as I grew up. And I grew up in what I call a small town, not Chicago. And my living faith foundation led me to what I do now. And I think that as I live out the later stages of life, I'm going back to helping families and parents and communities, neighborhoods, like the neighborhood I live in here, really be able to nurture family life and children as the core of the heart of living faith. And I invite you all to share in such a dream.
Oh, I love that invitation, Miss Barbara. That is certainly one of my dreams, as you say. I love nurturing the children.
Beautiful, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Reverend Celeste, how about you describe a personal faith experience that has helped you grow spiritually and increase your understanding of unity?
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate that. April Helen, I was studying at Agape International Spiritual Center, which was founded by Michael Bernard Beckwith. And I was in practitioner training, which is a spiritual counselor training class. And that particular section was on sexuality. Well, prior to those previous sessions, I was like waiting for a spiritual breakthrough, waiting for a spiritual breakthrough. When is mine going to come? And the topic somehow opened me up where I just started cleansing myself of all sexism, self-imposed sexism, self-imposed racism, self-imposed homophobia. And it was so intense that I finally freed myself of any of the isms that were never mine, but because they were imposed upon me, that I was able to release them. And I was bawling pretty loudly. And the minister who was facilitating said, "Does anyone need prayer?" And I'm like, "Lady, do you not hear me bawling over here?" So I went next door to sit with a practitioner, and that practitioner listened to me as I revealed my revelation that everyone loves me, whether or not they know it. And so for me, that shifted everything because there was nothing outside of me. There was only the allness in love, and that the love won't die, won't ever go away. It's eternal, and that connects all of us.
I love it. And I have studied under Michael Bernard myself, so I know of where you speak. What a wonderful story. I look forward to knowing more of it over 2 minutes. So let's do that. Thank you. All right, Arken, what do you think? What's your story?
Good morning, all. I too was studying, but I was studying with at JCI, the Johnny Coleman Institute. The founder, of course, was the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, an icon in New Thought. And I was called in for a meeting with one of the administrative ministers. It had nothing to do with anything that I can remember, but I remember sitting there with her. And as I sat there with this, unrelated to whatever I was about, And she asked me, you have this television show and you're trying to get some of our people on, and I just want to know, what is it that you want to do? And I think that was the first time I was really asked, what is it that I wanted to do with this on the spiritual journey? And when I realized what she asked me and I gave her the answer, I said, I want to teach pure metaphysics without regard to race or religion, belief or non-belief. That's what I want to do. And it was at that point that I can really say that my spiritual journey began to open up and evolve into what it is today, a continuing journey of spirituality. So it was an outside experience that brought me inside to the truth of who and what I was and who and what I am and my purpose.
Wonderful. The metaphysics and now quantum physics all catching up to fusing science and religion. If I can say that out loud, I think I can. And Mr. Alden, how about you?
Thank you, everyone, for coming again this morning. And thanks to April Hellett for facilitating this group. And a year ago, I didn't really have interfaith activities on my radar. So like Barbara was mentioning a few minutes ago, I've reached an older aspect of my life, and things have been slowing down in an activity way. And I was really praying last summer for a new project or a new way of, I thought it would be something in my main focus area of A Course in Miracles, but I was just praying for a new project without any real boundaries. And in September of last year, an old friend called me who I hadn't spoken with for 7 years. And he called me and said, did I want to go to Mexico and spend a couple months at an interfaith community? But there was a lot of Course in Miracles there, but it was interfaith as well. And I thought, wow, who knows how you're going to be answered in your prayers. And so, yeah, my wife and I gladly accepted going down there and spending the 2 months while our friend went on sabbatical as a spiritual teacher. And it's an amazing experience getting to know and express yourself to people of different faiths. Like there was a Yogananda disciple or several, and Muktananda, and different kinds of unity people there. And it was really interesting to express myself on a broader scale than just, say, the language of one sect called A Course in Miracles. So that's something that can really happen to anyone, is the power of prayer to open up new avenues of your personal transformation. So thank you, everyone.
And I love that I benefited from your meditations and prayers for leading us to the now. Wonderful. One of my newest favorite siblings, Miss Tammy. Share your story with us, sister.
So glad to be here today. For me, I grew up in church, like a poster child for the church. And I went on to be a pastor. I was married to someone who was a pastor in the Assemblies of God. I love God and Jesus. God has always been more of a reality to me than probably just about anything else in my frames of reference for reality. But it wasn't until my personal life kind of crashed and burned, which happened around circa 2008. Divorce, my husband got fired from the church that I grew up in. All kinds of things got turned upside down, and I took steamrollers to my life that had, thus far been so good at measuring up to all the measuring sticks everywhere. And I spent time with many different backgrounds and many different spiritual practices. And I studied anthropology, and I had a deep respect for any world that I had the privilege to enter, because as an anthropologist, it was my job to appreciate life through their lens, wherever they were coming from. And one day I found myself back in the church that I grew up in visiting, and some of the lyrics for a worship song had come up on the screen, and they were rubbing me the wrong way because I was like, this isn't exactly theologically sound. And I was sitting there kind of smugly, like so irritated by this song. But the next song came on, and I just kind of was overwhelmed with these visions of people that were connecting with God everywhere, all over the world. And I realized that if I had come into my own church the way that I came into everything else anthropologically, I would have the same appreciation for everyone on the planet, the way that they connected with God. And that experience alone has very much shaped the way I see unity and my own spiritual growth.
And yet again, a story that could keep on being told and is continuing to be told one moment after another. I love eternal life. At least that's my reality. Faith, whether it's true or not, we'll all know at some point.
We're very honored to have all of us have these profound experiences that actually literally direct our life and give us that passion that we still have, right? And that's just exciting. And that we can support one another in that is very exciting. But it takes these profound experiences, doesn't it, to kind of get us going, and then we can't doubt what direction we're being guided in. So thank you all, are beautiful testimonies.
That's a really good point. I love that, Miss Darla. Relationships are so important. I appreciate you in my life. All right. Thank you, panelists, for that first question being answered so delightfully. As we move on to our next, with how might interfaith dialogue contribute to the social transformation of the planet?
Thank you, April Helen. Yeah, this is why we're all here at the beginning of looking at the Parliament of World Religions. And it's so vital that we get together on this, because I think all religions have peace as a central pillar of their goals. And what we really want to do as human beings is find peace. And the world is actually seemingly the opposite. Everyone is set on protecting themselves with armaments and finding ways to attack each other, even through selfishness and fear. And the spiritual community, which has fallen a bit into disrepute, I believe, like Europe seems to me to be a very secular nation, and America is growing more and more secular. And I think the whole world, you go to South America as well, it's very secular and materialistic. And the example we can set as separate thought systems of religion, if we can come together, we can set the example of what it means to find peace. Not to mention all the things we do on the side of setting spiritual principles by which to live, like peace and love. But we can set the example by working together first in order to allow the world to begin to work together as well. So thanks.
That's a wonderful synopsis, and I concur. The peace that passes understanding, I'm recognizing as the goal of every day of my life. Still a work in progress in this young body. Thank you, Mr. Alden. How about you, Miss Tammy? What do you think about interfaith dialogue contributing to the social transformation of the planet?
Well, interfaith dialogue, I think, helps us to practice empathy and curiosity about one another. Again, as an anthropologist, I come back to that human state of things where we have an us versus them foundation ingrained as a part of our operating system. Because from the earliest times, humans have made nearly all of our decisions around our interactions with one another based on the attributes of one another that we view through this us versus them lens. Like, what do they look like? What do they wear? What food do they eat? What's their theology? And then these things determine if we'll talk to them, if we'll do business or trade with them. Do the people from our village marry the people from their village? Is that allowed? So having interfaith dialogue on purpose and intentionally, I think, helps to bring that ingrained operating system up to the forefront of our conscious minds, where then we have the opportunity to notice the societal, familial, environmental constructs that are influencing our decisions about each other. And then from that point of awareness, we become primed with this new openness that then is really the basis for even more than just a peaceful coexistence, but really a collective thriving, regardless of our differences, and then also including but not limited to our belief systems. I think it would be all-encompassing kind of acceptance for one another.
I love that you lifted up the importance of intentional, deliberate, coming together on purpose. And even beyond interfaith, right? Taking this approach, what I call art of universal language, into each and every, especially difficult conversations.
Yeah. First of all, you made mention of being on an unfolding journey or spiritual journey, and that's a continual process. It never stops as long as we're on the planet. But back to the question, when we talk about a single focus, and that focus is the social transformation or peace, let me say, of the planet, when you bring various faiths together for dialogue, what you bring is a particular energy that they combine with. And I like to say that the smartest person in the room is the entire room. So with the various paths that they bring, we can find different methodology to reach that transformational stage that we may never have thought of in our own little cocoons. Coming together with that single purpose opens us up to many possibilities of reaching our goal.
The smartest person in the room is the entire room, as we each as individuals are a significant, intrinsically valuable part of the whole. Our work together is important. Our service together is transcendent and transformational. Thank you, Arkin.
And it speeds things along, doesn't it? It speeds our endeavors along when we join and recognize that other minds are equal with us and as creative in ways perhaps we're not, and we just enhance one another. So it's a real gift, if you can. We've all probably got a handle as much as we're able to in our current transformation for teamwork, the value of teamwork, and it's invaluable, as most of you in this room know. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Miss Darla. I agree. All right, Miss Barbara, what do you think? I know you have more than 2 minutes to say about this.
Oh, but I try to put it into 2 minutes. So I will fast forward from my sister and me at 5 and 3 years old to now. And in my current work now, I feel bringing love and compassion for humanity to science is the strange, unexpected route my life has taken. I became, as Tammy was talking, a social scientist, and my master's degree at the University of Kansas. That was the foreign land I grew up in, by the way, is Kansas. And so I found myself surprised when I went to the Parliament of World Religions in 2018. I thought I would retire from my world of science, which evolved into being committed to all of the high-risk operations on the planet, starting with the United States, that are misusing nuclear science and technology. I made a commitment in 1970 in my master's degree program to advocate for nuclear disarmament. But I thought perhaps I would just be a minister for the Episcopal Church. I'm a lifelong Episcopalian. So I went to Parliament to learn more about interfaith. And I met the Reverend William Swing, who founded United Religions Initiative and also Voices for, this always I can't talk about without crying, Voices for a Nuclear Weapons-Free World. And that is our dream. And we are turning the ship around from fear to love.
How beautiful. And with your previous story of your love for children and ascending the planet, that obviously goes hand in hand. And I feel your passion around it through the screen. I love you, sister. All right, Miss Celeste, wrap this question up for us.
Although we've organized ourselves according to the information given to us, there's only one source. It loves and supports us at all times and in all ways. Ernest Holmes looked at the world religions and found the golden thread that connects all faiths. And in his seminal book, The Science of Mind, he says, our thought and continuous receptivity differentiate this universal possibility by drawing it through our minds and causing it to flow into particular channels through the conscious receptivity of our different faiths. But many of us already know that there's only one expressing itself, so we can allow the walls that differentiate us to dissolve. Holmes tells us that we are expressions of creativity, and there's transforming power in our faith. Ignorance stays with us until the day of enlightenment, until our vision toward the spirit broadens and casts out the image of no longer useful littleness. And what we now experience, we may cease experiencing if we have the will and imagination to set the vision. The will should hold it in place until the creative genius of the inner life transfers the image of limitation and transmutes it into liberty under law. And so we're really looking at our faith to lead us through transformation.
We are each an expression of God moving through us. And as soon as I knew that intellectually in my childhood, yet through my 20s of studying science of mind, that's when I really got it. Like, okay, I'm supposed to be here for a reason. And it helped me out of depression and suicidal tendencies and addiction. And now I get to use my story, as each of us can, to minister or be a friend to anyone as we pass by. Wonderful. Thank you, panelists. We have one more question for you. What is a pragmatic technique that you use to empower creative diversity? I love this. One of my favorite questions. All right, Miss Tammy, you are up first.
Okay, well, first I'd love to just divert, because Barbara bringing up voices is so special and precious that you said that today, because we are on the anniversary of Hiroshima, and we all, Unify partnered with Voices and have actually a meditation and prayer going out for the world tomorrow. So if anyone wants to join with that, there's lots of things going on tonight and tomorrow, but at 12:30 Pacific, it'll be aired on unify.org. or at Unified's Facebook page. So please do join, even if you can't join in spirit, because I really believe that prayer changes things, and the nuclear prayer is like us praying for a relative's body if they're sick, you know, like at the cellular level. It's like us praying for our science and our earth and our relationship with it together. So shameless plug for that, but Barbara sparked that in my heart, and thank you, Barbara. With regard to creative diversity, I think there's an intersection where creative diversity and unity are really one and the same. And for me to empower creative diversity, I like to ask people with a genuine curiosity, what makes you come alive? What lights you up in life? Because innovation and creativity is fostered when there's room for aliveness and play. If we're feeling stuck, we're not likely to feel that kind of expansive elasticity that allows for our creative diversity or the growing of our horizon of context that lets us see things differently. But if we're safe, if we feel seen, if we have space to reflect and to feel that part of us inside, that aspect of ourselves that we feel connected to purpose, where our genius zones get to play, then it's exponential what's possible. So for me, that genuine inquiry where I lean in and I get to invite a spark of curiosity in another is my pragmatic approach to empowering creative diversity.
Oh man, that's full. You're full of it. I love it. Let's take these tools away as we move along to our Ken. What's your technique to empower creative diversity?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer this question. Our teachings, New Thought Metaphysics, is based on the individual expression of spirituality. So everything that we do, even though sometimes it's misunderstood, is for self-expression of your divinity. That's what it's for, on a basic premise. So what we do, and what I do with my speaking opportunities, facilitating opportunities, and on our Sunday service, is to provide the tools for the individual to express their creativity, their spirituality in their own unique way. So there's no dogma to say it must be done this way, because we know that each person is a spark of the divine, and that spark has its own path to ignite into the universe. So that is our premise, that is what we teach, and that's what we believe. And we say you need to integrate that with your practice, no matter what it is, meditation, chanting, whatever it might be. If you can integrate within that your own divine spark, your own idea of being a divine spark, and accept it, you will connect with the creativity of the universe.
The first one I do is worship. In other words, I work in high-risk industry, and life, and so I connect to God no matter what's happening. I teach soldiers in combat to do that. Just stay connected, be connected, and then trust God. And then my favorite, though, is storytelling. And a good example, I'm going to call it worshipful storytelling, as a result of just the conversation we've already been having. Because look at the unity and commonality among us panelists who didn't even know one another before we started. And here the nuclear prayer has already been shared. It's our 2nd anniversary of International Nuclear Prayer Day, August 6th. And the reason I cry is because my father is an atomic veteran. And my life story has led me to work with Japanese Americans. My father was one of the first Navy medical doctors ever to walk into Nagasaki as an occupier with the 2nd Marine Division. Fortunately, my father talked about it with me. I always knew about Nagasaki. And what I will share for those who've experienced a nuclear weapon, namely the Hiroshima and Nagasaki survivors and their multiple generations. I work with 2nd and 3rd generations primarily now, is that they cry when they tell their stories. The grief lasts a lifetime. And sharing it together in story, which you'll see a lot of this weekend if you go to some of their sharings, which are powerful for unity, helps us tell our stories truthfully and in unity together for the world. The Japanese lead us in peace in many ways, those who are peaceful. Thank you for letting me tell a story I didn't plan to tell.
Oh, thank you, Miss Barbara.
Thank you. If I could, April Helen, and very moved by that, Barbara. And also I had wanted to comment on what Gard wrote in the chat, which is worship is the technique to see the unity in diversity, not just human diversity, all creation. And I know that's a tricky word to share. I found lately I like to use that, and then Barbara said worship too. I know it's my word and my, and I also like the word in Mexico, I kind of came to this one more, devotion, devotion with my inner guide. And so it is such a key, we don't often admit it, well, we know it inwardly. And it reminds me of a saying that I appreciate that says, a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. And I believe that's how we're going to come together. That's how the word worship relates to me in divine communion, devotion is, it's going to be a universal experience where we see our similarities. We have way more similarities than we'll admit. Even the golden rule is in every religion, right? We all know that. So thank you all for that. Thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you, Miss Darla. Yes. Universal experience. I think of love and one family, one oneness. We're all in this together. What do you think, Miss Celeste? What's a pragmatic technique that you use to empower creative diversity?
It all begins with consciousness. I have a pretty inclusive way of seeing and therefore an inclusive way of speaking. I'm still learning, but I use all pronouns. And, he, she, they, it, regardless of, what may be on the page. And I'm inclusive of all faiths. And my technique, if you will, is to know who's in the room. That helps me not to leave anyone out. And that means sexuality, faith, even politics. And even if they are not in the room, they may be online, either now or later, and see a recording. And since my goal has always been to promote oneness, I will likely address those there to consider those who are not there. And I have in talks as recently as last month. I remember the next day after the verdict was rendered at the trial of George Zimmerman, who killed an unarmed Black teenager named Trayvon Martin. I was all prepared to address an all Black audience and comfort them because Zimmerman was found not guilty. But there was a Latino man there and a white woman in the audience. And Latino man was like the same makeup of Zimmerman. And the jurors were all women. 5 were white and 1 was Puerto Rican. And a technique then for me is to find out as much as I can about who is there and be prepared or get prepared to talk to who is there, because what happens in our silos that we're in is that we're not prepared to speak to everyone. And if I get surprised by a shift in the demographics, I go to God. Spirit is the authority on all things and all people.
And yet another pillar of the art of universal language, being aware of your audience. I love that. Thank you for lifting that up.
Thank you, April Helen. I've been listening to everyone and such great ideas that we've been talking about, and they're so important. And one of the things that I'm kind of used with the Course in Miracles. It's a very patriarchal expression of spirituality, and I'm used to preaching to the front choir a bit more than I should, or talking or teaching, whatever you want to call it. And so I've always used patriarchal language, even because everybody kind of knows the Course in Miracles that I've talked to. But it was interesting going to Mexico last winter and running into all kinds of different people. And I found out you really have to listen and take in the feedback and hear what people say, that patriarchal language is no longer acceptable. It's hard to get that out of your subconscious if you've been doing it for some decades. So, but still you have to make the effort, and you have to get better at it, and you have to listen when you fall off base. It's such an important thing. And just to wrap things up though, Arkan spoke about the room as the smartest person in the room. That begins with having a communication partner. And I've always taught with my wife, Darla. And I think that's so important because it gives you a basis of, I have to listen to Darla in order to express anything now, listening becomes a demonstration rather than just something you talk about. So one of my techniques is having a communication or teaching partner. So thanks, everyone.
I have found that to be true as well. Inquiry is a key. Oh, how wonderful. That has been really rich. And I'm so excited to now shift our 2-hour event exploration of unifying communication